A successful business trainer gets arrested in front of 60 students. 6 months later, he walks out of prison completely transformed. But it wasn't the bars or the guards that changed him. It was the stories he heard from his cellmates. What did a death row inmate do that shocked the entire prison system? How did a respected imam lose everything and end up begging on the streets? And why did his daughter become his only hope for freedom? What happens when a Quran teacher gets accused of something unthinkable by his own neighbor? Welcome back to our channel, where we explore real Arabian stories that reveal the complexities of human nature and society. I'm here to share authentic experiences that highlight cultural nuances and moral dilemmas we all face. Today's collection comes from someone who went from the peak of professional success to rock bottom in a single day, only to discover that prison walls can't contain the most powerful lessons about humanity. Before we begin, please approach these stories with respect and an open mind. These are real people who faced real consequences, and their experiences deserve our thoughtful consideration. Meet Saeed, a man who had everything figured out. He was a certified trainer in neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, and positive hypnosis. He owned his own company and commanded respect wherever he went. But on one ordinary day, while standing before 60 eager students at a university, his entire world crumbled in seconds. Police officers walked into his training session and arrested him in front of everyone. The man who taught others how to master their minds suddenly couldn't remember his own name during questioning. While Saeed admits he made mistakes that led to his arrest, what happened next would teach him more about human psychology than any certification ever could. For 6 months, Saeed found himself in a concrete box, stripped of everything that defined him. But instead of wallowing in self-pity, he made a decision that would transform his understanding of life. He would learn from every single person around him. The broken father, Abu Nasr's tragic choice. The first person Saeed connected with was a 60-year-old man sitting alone, radiating anger and resentment. This was Abu Nasr, and his story would shatter every assumption about wisdom and age. Abu Nasr had been the pillar of his community, an elementary school teacher, a mosque imam who led Friday prayers, and a respected businessman with a small shop. He was married to his cousin and blessed with 5 daughters whom he adored. But there was one thing missing from his perfect life: a son. When his wife finally gave birth to a boy after 20 years of marriage, Abu Nasr named him Nasr and made a decision that would destroy his family. Overnight, his 5 daughters went from being the apples of his eye to second-class citizens in their own home. 14-year-old Nasr became the man of the house. His word was law, and he was allowed to mistreat his older sisters without consequence. Abu Nasr justified everything. These are just girls who will get married and leave. Only Nasr will stay with me. As Nasr grew into his entitled role, he became increasingly demanding. At 18, he wanted to study abroad. When his father said no for the first time in his life, Nasr exploded. He demanded a car instead, threatening to cut all ties with the family. Abu Nasr didn't have the money, but he couldn't bear to disappoint his golden child. So he did something that shocked even himself. He went to every friend and relative, begging and borrowing until he had collected $400,000 to buy Nasr a car. But it wasn't enough for Nasr. He wanted travel money too. "If you found money for the car, find money for travel," he coldly told his father. Abu Nasr borrowed another $25,000, giving his son everything he demanded. Nasser took the money and vanished, leaving no trace behind. The aftermath was devastating. Abu Nasser's mental health collapsed. The respected imam stopped going to the mosque, began smoking for the first time in his life, and in a moment of rage, struck his wife, something he'd never done in 35 years of marriage. He wandered the streets aimlessly, eventually sitting outside a mosque where strangers, thinking he was homeless, threw money at him. The man who once led prayers had become a beggar. His debts mounted until he was arrested and thrown in prison. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. While Abu Nasser rotted in jail, his eldest daughter, one of the girls he had neglected for years, quietly gathered the money to pay his debts and secure his freedom. The child who became a man too soon. Next, Saeed met Yasser, whose story proved that sometimes the strongest people are forged in the hottest fires. When Yasser was just 7 years old, his parents divorced, leaving him with a sick mother who survived by sewing clothes for neighbors. At 8.5 years old, Yasser made a decision that would define his character forever. He looked at his struggling mother and declared, "I'm a man now, and I'll take care of us." While other children played in the streets, Yasser worked at a grocery store, learning to sell, count money, and manage inventory. For 10 years, he became known as the hardest working kid in the neighborhood. Customers loved him so much they started calling it Yasser's store. By his late teens, Yasser had saved enough to buy a car and started working as a taxi driver. His income jumped to $4,000 to $5,000 per month, allowing him to finally give his mother the comfortable life she deserved. But success brought unexpected temptation. One of his regular female customers began making increasingly inappropriate advances. She invited him to stay with her and her children at a private resort, making excuses about needing him to watch the kids while she was in another section. Yasser's inner battle was intense. He was a young man with money, freedom, and opportunities that most his age couldn't imagine. The devil whispered that he deserved to enjoy life like everyone else, while his conscience reminded him of his mother's prayers and sacrifices. The breaking point came when the woman appeared before him, improperly dressed, assuming he would finally give in to temptation. Instead, Yasser did something that shocked even himself. He looked down and immediately left. "I felt like I had won the greatest victory of my life," Yasser told Saeed. "I had protected the diamond inside me." But the woman's revenge was swift and cruel. She filed a false report claiming Yasser had tried to assault her. Despite the fact that nothing inappropriate had actually happened, Yasser found himself in prison, his reputation destroyed by lies. The most heartbreaking part? When his mother learned of his arrest, she didn't break down. Instead, she told him with unwavering strength, "Don't be afraid. God will resolve this for you." The death row marriage? Abdul Bari's impossible love story. Perhaps the most unbelievable story Saeed encountered was that of Abdul Bari, a man whose life read like something from a movie script. Abdul Bari was a high school graduate who couldn't find work and felt like a complete failure compared to his successful friends. The emptiness and jealousy consumed him until he fell in with a group of unemployed young men who filled his days with meaningless activities. Eventually, this group introduced him to illegal substances, and Abdul Bari found himself dealing forbidden goods. For a brief moment, he felt successful. He had money, a car, and what seemed like a future. But during a dispute with his partners, Abdul Bari lost control and struck someone with an iron rod. The man passed away instantly, and Abdul Bari's world collapsed. He was sentenced to execution and placed in Building 14, death row. In that place of ultimate despair, Abdul Bari met an elderly man also awaiting execution. This man had one final wish: to see his youngest daughter married before he was put to death. In what sounds like complete fiction, the old man proposed that Abdul Bari marry his daughter. "Why don't you marry her? Maybe God will bless her with a son from you to comfort her after I'm gone." What started as a joke became serious when the old man wrote a formal request to the prison director. Against all odds, the administration approved the marriage. Abdul Bari married a woman he had never seen in a prison ceremony that would change both their lives forever. The marriage was real, and soon his wife became pregnant. She gave birth to a healthy son, giving the elderly grandfather 1 week of pure joy before his execution was carried out. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn. The victim's family heard about Abdul Bari's unusual circumstances, a man who had married and become a father while awaiting execution. Moved by compassion, they chose to forgive him and drop their claim for retribution. Abdul Bari walked free, a living testament to the power of mercy and second chances. The silent suffering, Uncle Yusuf's family betrayal. The next story that haunted Saeed was that of Uncle Yusuf, a man so broken by betrayal that he had stopped speaking entirely. Other inmates called him the statue because of his expressionless face and silence. It took weeks of patient friendship, bringing him breakfast, sitting with him in prayer, showing simple kindness, before Yusuf finally opened up about the wound that had shattered his spirit. Yusuf was a 60-year-old man with 4 sons and 1 daughter. When suitors came to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, he was overcome with joy. In his excitement and confusion, he accidentally embraced his son Rayyan's wife instead of his daughter, mistaking her for his daughter in the chaos of the moment. It was an innocent mistake that any father might make in a moment of overwhelming happiness. But Rayyan was furious and publicly humiliated his father, accusing him of shameful behavior and calling the police. Yusuf found himself arrested and charged with assault, based entirely on his own son's testimony. But the betrayal ran deeper than anyone knew. While Yusuf sat in prison, Rayyan forged documents to steal a piece of land that his father had planned to donate for the construction of a mosque. When the authorities called Yusuf to confirm the supposed sale, he faced an impossible choice: expose his son's fraud or protect him by going along with the lie. Even after everything Rayyan had done to him, Yusuf chose to protect his son, agreeing to the sale but asking to cancel it to avoid getting Rayyan in trouble. The falsely accused, Faisal's nightmare. Among all the stories, perhaps none was more infuriating than that of Faisal, a 23-year-old who had memorized the entire Quran and dedicated his life to teaching children and serving his community as a caller to prayer. Faisal was beloved in his neighborhood. Children looked forward to his classes, parents trusted him completely, and his character was beyond reproach. But he had one enemy, a neighbor who constantly complained about the mosque's call to prayer, claiming it disturbed his sleep. This neighbor's hatred festered until he found an opportunity for revenge. One Friday morning, while Faisal was preparing incense for the mosque service, the neighbor's young son followed him upstairs to watch. When the father discovered his son with Faisal in the upper area of the mosque, he immediately assumed the worst. Without asking questions or seeking explanation, he physically attacked Faisal and called the police, claiming he had caught Faisal in an inappropriate situation with his child. The child was examined and found to be completely unharmed, but the damage was done. false witnesses came forward, and despite the lack of any real evidence, Faisal was convicted and imprisoned. Faisal's own father passed away from the shock of seeing his son's reputation destroyed by such accusations. But even in this darkness, there was light. The child's mother, the wife of the man who had destroyed Faisal's life, came forward to defend Faisal's character. She testified that her husband was an unreligious man with a history of causing problems, while Faisal had always been trustworthy and honorable. The lessons learned. As Saeed shared these stories, certain truths became clear. Age doesn't guarantee wisdom. Abu Nasr lived 60 years as a teacher and imam, but failed spectacularly when faced with his first real parenting crisis. Education doesn't prevent poor judgment. Knowledge means nothing without the emotional intelligence to apply it correctly. Perhaps most importantly, Saeed learned that circumstances don't define character. Choices do. In the same environment that broke some men, others found strength they never knew they possessed. The transformation. After 6 months, Saeed emerged from prison fundamentally changed. He had entered as a successful trainer who thought he understood human psychology. He left as someone who had witnessed the full spectrum of human nature, the depths of cruelty and betrayal, but also the heights of forgiveness and resilience. The man who once taught others about mental mastery had learned that true strength comes not from controlling circumstances, but from finding meaning and growth in whatever situation life presents. These stories from behind prison walls reveal a harsh truth. Life can change in an instant, and the people we think we know best can sometimes surprise us in the most devastating ways. Each man's downfall came from a different source: misplaced priorities, false accusations, momentary mistakes, or family betrayal. But they all learned that rock bottom can become the foundation for rebuilding a stronger life. We've all faced moments where our world felt like it was crashing down. Maybe you've been betrayed by someone you trusted, falsely accused of something you didn't do, or made a decision that had consequences far beyond what you imagined. These stories show us that even in our darkest moments, we have choices about how we respond and what we learn from our experiences. The key lesson here is about building your self-worth from within, not from external validation. Don't wait for others to define your value or determine your happiness. Invest in relationships with people who truly know and support you, because when crisis hits, those genuine connections will be your lifeline. And remember, your current circumstances, no matter how difficult, don't have to define your future. Until next time, remember that every ending can be a new beginning, and every setback can become the foundation for an incredible comeback. What's your biggest takeaway from these incredible stories? Have you ever faced a moment where everything you thought you knew about life was challenged? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If these stories moved you as much as they moved me, please hit that like button and subscribe for more authentic stories that explore the depths of human experience. Ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest content.